Good morning, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the top stories for the hour. Trump visits the UAE on his Middle East tour, focusing on economic cooperation. Istanbul peace talks on the war in Ukraine are in limbo, with key leaders set to skip the meeting. Germany and the UK signed a defence agreement in Berlin to deepen military cooperation. US President Donald Trump has wrapped up a tour of the Gulf nations with a final stop in the United Arab Emirates, where he met President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The leaders discussed expanding bilateral ties and a new Emirati pledge to invest in the US. Trump said he may return to Washington on Friday, though hinted he could stop in Istanbul for talks on Ukraine.
The United Arab Emirates is keen on continuing to expand ties with the United States. That's what President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan told US President Donald Trump on Thursday during a meeting in Abu Dhabi. The announcement follows a pledge to invest $1.4 trillion in the US.
Mr. President, the United Arab Emirates and the United States share a strong development-focused partnership. This partnership has taken a significant and unprecedented leap forward, especially since you assumed office, particularly in the areas of the new economy, energy, advanced technology, artificial intelligence, and industry. A testament to this is the UAE's plan to invest in the US in these sectors through the UAE investment bodies at a total value of $1.4 trillion over the next 10 years.
We will work very hard to deserve it. I have absolutely no doubt that the relationship will only get bigger and better. Your relationship and mine can't get better, so I can't say it's going to get better because it's at the highest level it can be.
Trump visited the UAE's capital city on Thursday, the last stop of a tour of the Gulf states after visiting Saudi Arabia and Qatar. The US president also said that he will probably return to Washington on Friday, although he said his destination is still unknown. Trump had earlier hinted that he could stop in Istanbul for talks on Ukraine.
Thank you very much.
The US is expected to ease some sanctions on Syria in the coming weeks after President Donald Trump announces he would lift all sanctions at the request of Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said waivers under the Caesar Syria Civilian Protection Act would be used, allowing partial relief without full congressional repeal. The move prompted efforts by the Treasury and State Departments to manage the shift. Rubio, speaking in Turkey, said that the US aims to support Syria's recovery after 13 years of war.
The core of these sanctions are statutory under the Caesar Act. I've had members of Congress in both parties ask us to use the waivers authorities in that law, and that's what the president intends to do. Those waivers have to be renewed every 180 days. Ultimately, if we make enough progress, we'd like to see the law repealed, because you're going to struggle to find people to invest in a country when in 6 months sanctions could come back. We're not there yet. That's premature. I think we want to start with the initial waiver, which will allow foreign partners who wanted to flow in aid to begin to do so without running the risk of sanctions. I think as we make progress, hopefully we'll be in a position soon or one day to go to Congress and ask them to permanently remove the sanctions.
Ukraine and Russia have sent delegations to Turkey for the first direct talks in 3 years. But with both presidents absent and no meeting with the two leaders organised, hopes for a breakthrough are already fading.
Peace talks between Ukraine and Russia have yet to begin. The anticipated start was derailed on Thursday as Russian President Vladimir Putin declined to meet face-to-face with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky, sending instead a lower-level delegation team led by presidential advisor Vladimir Medinsky. While Ukraine remained silent until later in the day, when President Zelensky, after meeting with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Ankara, said a delegation would attend after all. That Ukrainian team, led by Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, is notably higher ranking than the Russian side, a move Zelensky framed as a sign of seriousness and respect toward both Turkish mediation and US President Donald Trump.
Despite quite a low level of Russian delegation, but with respect to Donald Trump, with respect to the high level of Turkish delegation, with respect to President Erdogan, and willing to demonstrate, to try to achieve at least first steps in de-escalation and ending the war, ceasefire, I decided to send our delegation to Istanbul. But not all of them. Head of State Security Service and Chief of Staff won't be there. The delegation will be led by the Defense Minister.
Speaking to reporters on the eve of the talks, former Culture Minister and the head of Russian delegation, Vladimir Medinsky, insisted the group was ready for talks and claimed to be pursuing a constructive path toward long-term peace, though he offered no detail.
Наша делегация прибыла сегодня по поручению президента в Стамбул.
Our delegation arrived in Istanbul today following the President's instructions to hold direct, bilateral, unconditional talks with Ukraine. We have already had a very productive meeting today with the Turkish Foreign Minister and explained our position. Tomorrow morning from 10 a.m. we will be waiting for the Ukrainian side, which should arrive for the meeting. We are ready to work.
Ждать украинскую сторону, которая должна прибыть навстречу.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump, speaking aboard Air Force One, reiterated that no progress will be made unless he and Putin meet directly.
Nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together, okay? And obviously he wasn't going to go. He was going to go, but he thought I was going to go. He wasn't going if I wasn't there. And I don't believe anything's going to happen, whether you like it or not, until he and I get together. But we're going to have to get it solved because too many people are dying.
The agenda, once talks begin, is already sharply contested. Ukraine is calling for an immediate, unconditional 30-day ceasefire. Russia, meanwhile, is pushing for broader negotiations, including demands that Kyiv abandon NATO ambitions, adopt neutrality, and recognize Moscow's control over occupied territories.
As Ukraine and Russia are expected to start direct negotiations, people on both sides are reacting with a mix of hope, frustration and doubt. While some welcome the prospect of dialogue, others fear it will change little.
While Ukraine and Russia are set to begin direct talks to negotiate a ceasefire, reactions on the streets of both countries reveal a shared mood: scepticism, cautious hope and fatigue. In Ukraine, where the full-scale war has entered its fourth year, many doubt that any negotiation with Moscow will bring real change.
It seems to me Zelensky is doing what most Ukrainians would like him to do, but whether it will work, I think not. The only thing Putin understands is force. He doesn't understand talks. It will be yet another meeting, and then things will go on as they are now.
Unfortunately, Ukrainians have been in this war for a very long time. The full-scale war has gone on longer than anyone expected. That's why, sadly, Ukrainians are already ready to make concessions, even territorial ones, just to stop further land grabs and killings, to bring this war to an end so things don't get even worse.
In Moscow, some still cling to hope, but few expect a breakthrough.
The hope is slender, but there is still hope. I fear that once again the dialogue with Ukraine will fail, unless there is some help from other countries, I mean US and Europe. Maybe something works this way.
They're trying to push for this 30-day ceasefire. Putin will not cooperate. We need a long perspective peace, that's all.
Many remain skeptical as Russia's President Vladimir Putin is not participating at the talks in Istanbul. However, a delegation will be there, led by Russian presidential aide Vladimir Medinsky, together with 3 other high-level delegates and 4 experts.
Germany and the UK signed a defence agreement in Berlin to deepen military cooperation, including work on a long-range precision strike weapon. German Defence Minister Boris Pistorius and UK Defence Secretary John Healey said the deal builds on the 2024 Trinity House Agreement. Both criticised Russian President Vladimir Putin for skipping the Ukraine-Russia peace talks in Istanbul, with Healy calling it a clear sign Putin isn't serious about ending the war. Heads of states and governments of the European political communities are gathering in Tirana for the 6th EPC summit. The summit brought together leaders from 47 countries, including the EU states and others such as the UK, Turkey and Ukraine. There's set to talk on European security, economic resilience and youth empowerment. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev also arrived to the Albanian capital to participate in the EPC summit at the invitation of Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama and European Council President Antonio Costa. Aliyev was greeted at the airport by Albanian Deputy Prime Minister Belinda Baluku and other officials. In our last Context talk show ahead of this year's European Political Community Summit today, Orkan Amashov discussed the EPC's inaugural forum in Prague in 2022, when Armenia and Azerbaijan recognised each other's territorial integrity. Vlad Oteniu is a political analyst from Brussels who shared his insights on what we can expect from the 6th EPC Summit being held in Tirana in Albania.
I don't think that there will be many tangible outcomes. I think there will be many discussions, and it will be a start in the direction of the dialogue. As you mentioned very correctly, EPC is EU plus. It is EU plus Turkey, it is EU plus UK, it is EU plus many other countries in the European space. It is very clearly EU plus zones in Europe which actually are of high interest to the European Union, and that may include the Balkans, but that definitely does include the Caucasus area. So clearly, it is a very important moment for the leaders to be able to discuss directly, even if for not long. It doesn't last long. The subjects are many. Security is one of the top subjects, but so is the economic resilience, so is the economic innovation and sustainability. So is the energy and discussions around the energy. So there are very important subjects, and I think it is a place for dialogue. We shall see probably decisions, but not necessarily at the EPC, but rather later. So in the weeks and months following the EPC, we should see some of the decisions being made and implemented, starting to be implemented within the European continent.
Turkey is doubling down on its economic engagement with Uzbekistan. During the Turkey-Uzbekistan Business Forum in Tashkent, Turkish Vice President Cevdet Yılmaz highlighted growing investments, strengthened trade ties and ambitious future goals.
Turkey will continue to expand its investments and trade relations with Uzbekistan. That's according to Turkish Vice President Cevdet Yılmaz. Speaking at the Turkey-Uzbekistan Business Forum in Tashkent, Yılmaz noted that nearly 1,900 Turkish companies are currently operating in Uzbekistan. These companies have invested a total of $5.6 billion, employ thousands of people, contribute significantly to public finances, and export goods from the region. Yılmaz emphasized the deep-rooted historical and cultural ties between the two nations, stating that the ancient Silk Road bridges built by their ancestors have today evolved into a modern foundation of cooperation. He said he credited the strong, sincere and trust-based relationship between Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev for the recent acceleration in bilateral cooperation. According to Yılmaz, this leadership synergy has provided a solid basis for expanding collaboration across various sectors. The Vice President also confirmed that the 8th Term Joint Economic Commission concluded successfully, with agreements involving both public institutions and the private sector. A major outcome was the expansion of the Preferential Trade Agreement, aimed at covering more goods and boosting overall trade volumes. He said that steps are also being taken to improve bilateral and transit road transport, specifically by eliminating the need for transit permits. Yılmaz said that harmonizing bureaucratic processes and physical infrastructure will lower costs and enhance the competitiveness of private companies. While trade between the two countries currently stands at $3 billion, Yılmaz acknowledged that this figure remains below potential. The target, he said, is to increase it to $5 billion in the short term and eventually reach $10 billion, driven primarily by the private sector, with governments ensuring a conducive environment for businesses. The forum also saw the signing of the 8th-term Joint Economic Commission Protocol and a comprehensive 82-article action plan. This agreement spans several strategic sectors, including trade, investments, transportation, energy, agriculture, and industry.
Uzbekistan is preparing to bring its companies to global markets. The country is one step away from joining the World Trade Organization. Our Fariza Kalimurzina has the latest.
President Shavkat Mirziyoyev has instructed the government to accelerate Uzbekistan's accession to the World Trade Organization. He has called for the adoption of about 15 legal acts and updates to several key laws. Officials have also been told to finish talks with 9 WTO member countries that Uzbekistan has not negotiated with before by the end of this year. Uzbekistan entered the active phase of WTO accession in 2023. Since then, there have been 4 working group meetings where experts addressed over 500 issues. Bilateral negotiations were held with 33 countries and 24 of those have already been successfully concluded. As part of the preparation, significant work has been done to align national legislation with WTO standards. This includes the adoption of certain new laws, 10 presidential decrees and resolutions, 19 cabinet resolutions, and 10 interdepartmental regulations. In a major shift, the exclusive rights of 6 state-owned enterprises have also been eliminated. The WTO currently includes 166 member countries and regulates about 98% of global trade. Uzbekistan's membership application is still under review, and accession talks actually began in 1994 but were put on hold and only resumed in 2020. Experts say that WTO membership could significantly boost the country's exports, unlocking nearly $6 billion in untapped potential. That includes $600 million each in clothing and fruit exports and $400 million in cars and auto parts. The World Bank estimates that joining the WTO could raise Uzbekistan's GDP by 17% within 5 to 7 years, largely thanks to growth in the service sector. That's especially important for a landlocked country like Uzbekistan, where service exports can make a big difference. Historically, accession to the WTO is a time-consuming process. For example, China took 15 years, while Russia needed 18. The more complex country's legal and policy framework, the longer it tends to take. But Uzbekistan is aiming to finish the process by the 14th WTO Ministerial Conference, which is scheduled for 2026 in Cameroon. Fariza Kalimurzina, A News, in Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Asian Economic Union and Iran officially came into effect. The agreement eliminates tariffs on approximately 90% of goods exchanged between Iran and the Union's member states, Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Armenia. Analysts project that this deal could boost mutual trade volumes to $12 billion in the near term and potentially up to $18 to $20 billion within 5 to 7 years. The US Treasury Department has extended authorizations related to the provision of oil field services to the Caspian Pipeline Consortium and Kazakhstan's Tengichev-Royal, confirming their exemption from current sanctions-related prohibitions. The CPC is the largest route for transporting oil from the Caspian region to global markets. The main pipeline, stretching 1,500 kilometres, connects oil fields in western Kazakhstan to the Russian Black Sea coast, where oil is loaded onto tankers via the CPC's marine terminal. Major shareholders of the consortium include Russia, Kazakhstan, Chevron, Lukoil, ExxonMobil, Rosneft's joint venture and Shell. An Afghan delegation is in Tajikistan for meetings on the Central Asia-South Asia Power Transmission Project, meant to the Kyrgyz and Tajik energy systems with Afghanistan and Pakistan. Tamim Bahis has the details.
A high-level Afghan delegation led by Dr. Abdul Bari Umar, the CEO of the Afghanistan Breshna Shirkat, the country's national power utility, is in Tajikistan this week to participate in a crucial regional meeting on the KASA 1000 project. The meeting, hosted in the capital city Dushanbe, brings together key representatives from Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan and Pakistan, along with international partners such as the World Bank, the Islamic Development Bank and other global institutions. The KASA 1000 project is one of the most ambitious regional power transmission initiatives, aiming to deliver surplus hydroelectricity from Central Asia to energy-hungry South Asia. The 1,300-kilometer transmission line passes through Afghanistan, making it a central player in the project. During the meeting, participants are reviewing the current status of the project, discussing obstacles and developing strategies to fast-track implementation. The agenda includes technical evaluation, updates on construction progress and financial planning. The Afghanistan Breshna Shirkat reaffirmed its commitment to completing and commissioning the project with continued support from international financial institutions. Beyond energy, KASA 1000 is expected to strengthen political ties and boost sustainable development across the region. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
That's the world news for the hour. Stay with us on A News for more updates throughout the day.